Hey Pathfinders, our book has finally arrived. The Pathfinder's Journey is live on Amazon right now and ready for you. If you have already purchased our book and or left us a review, we thank you endlessly. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? The ebook sale of 99 cents won't last long, so head over to Amazon today to get your copy. Be sure to download the free 7-day reading journal to make your journey even more worthwhile. Well, that's all for now. Check out the link in the show notes to get your copy of The Pathfinder's Journey today. Enjoy the show.
I always wanted to live in a historic home. I just thought the charm and the uniqueness was something you can't get in a newer home.
Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast with your host, Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we could have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to help guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life through real estate investing. Now sit back, turn up the volume, and get ready for this episode of the On Purpose Investor. What is up, Pathfinders? Welcome back to the On Purpose Investor Podcast with your host, Eric.
And Tiffany.
And we are excited to have you here today for episode number 7, where we're going to be talking about dreaming big. What is dreaming big? How can you dream big? How does dreaming big affect your life? How is a big dream going to get you to your goals? Is your dream your goals? Are they one and the same? We're going to talk about that. But first, I want to as we were preparing to talk about this, we were talking about what was our big dreams and what we went through to figure them out, how we often have to change our dreams here and there. Tiffany was telling me how our kid has made a very big impact on our dreams. And of course, children do. They change a lot. They augment your future a little bit. But one thing we didn't really consider was how much our daily lives would be affected by how much our kid eats.
It's incredible. He's 13 months now. We're not in a growth spurt. This is just normal daily life. And the kid eats like a linebacker. It is just impressive. And I feel like we might have to get another rental just to cover his food budget, especially when he becomes a teenager. But
oh my goodness. I'm not looking forward to seeing how much food comes in and out of that fridge each day, each week.
He eats more than I do at this point. I don't understand it.
I was looking at it this morning, and he had 2 eggs, a piece of sausage, and half a banana.
Yeah.
And the kid doesn't weigh but 22 pounds.
And then he's going to go eat a snack at school. And then he'll come home and eat the same lunch I'll eat. And then some milk and dinner and maybe another snack in there.
It's in and out.
Yeah.
It comes out pretty quick, too. But we don't want the E explicit on our podcast, so we won't go into details about how bad that gets. But as I digress a bit, our dreams and our goals that we set sometimes change, and that's okay, especially if it's changed for circumstances that you plan for. Having kids is great. Learning kids is not, especially about how much they eat. So what about dreaming big was impactful to us? How did we dream big? Because I don't recall a lot. I have a pretty bad memory. So when we first got started, I know that I read The Rhinoceros Success. I started having these ambitious goals that were motivated by a certain mindset to charge after them. But in order to charge after something, you got to know exactly what you're charging after. I knew that we wanted to buy rental properties. That was a very big, overarching thing.
Right. We started out with this realization that we could use rentals to allow me to stay home with our kids. And we knew we had 3 or 4 years before we wanted to start a family. We had just started dating. But the goal for us was to replace my income, or at least have enough to cover what we needed expense-wise. So that was, at the time, it was what we call a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Well, it's not just, we just call it that. We got that from somewhere.
Yes.
Where did we get that from?
Jim Collins and Built to Last. And they define it as a clear and compelling target for an organization to strive for. Now,
I've read a bit of a synopsis of Built to Last. It's not for real estate investors, is it?
No, it's, I guess, a general business term, personal development term. It's one of those ubiquitous things that's out there everywhere that's been adopted a lot in the real estate realm.
Well, Jim Collins was using this strategy to help grow businesses, right?
Yeah. I think the example he uses is Boeing in his book.
Okay.
The point is to create a goal that is so big and scary that you don't think you can accomplish it. Like getting a man on the moon is another big example. That was not remotely something that was feasible at the time that Kennedy stated that was the goal. But because they had such high aspirations, they were able to achieve it.
I mean, you have the arms race is going on during that era. And the Russians and Americans, they were in this competition to see who could get the furthest, the fastest. And like you said, it was just one of those, well, we're going to put a man on the moon. No one had ever done it before. No one probably knew how to do it. And without that crazy goal of we're going to put a man on the moon, they would have never set their sights on it, would have never tried to achieve it,
right?
Would have never built the technology or developed the technology that was required to do it.
Right. In our life, we had started investing, and then I wound up in the employment situation where I almost lost my job. We were already on the path. We weren't ready for me to leave my job, but how nice would it have been if we had enough for when that happened, I could have just walked away and not had to try to find supplementary income. When we set our goals, it was so unobtainable is how it felt.
Oh, absolutely. When I wrote down, we're going to buy 2 houses this year, I felt like I was just writing on a sheet of paper something that would never happen.
Right.
It felt like I was writing an empty promise.
And since then, we always, every year that we do our goals, we try to set something bigger than we think we can accomplish. One of the quotes that really stands out to me is from Bill Gates, and it's most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years.
I think that's very true for probably everyone. This year, I'm going to buy 2 houses. That seemed like I was super overestimating. Right. When we broke down how are we going to do that into daily actionable goals, we set the bar very low.
Yeah.
On our daily or weekly or quarterly goals.
And we started not with what do we want to accomplish just this year, but we always have done 3-year trajectories. That's the right spot for us. I know a lot of people think 10 years. You should think in 10-year increments because you want to think as big as possible. But for me, I somehow struggle thinking that far out. And I think it's because if you look back 10 years on your life or my life, we were completely different people.
10 years ago, I was 22.
You were still in college.
I was in my 5th year of undergrad. It took me 5.25 years. But I was still an undergrad. Hadn't even delved into my career in teaching.
Right. So 10 years ago, could you have imagined being where you are today?
It was not even in my line of sight.
So that's where I struggle with the 10-year timeline.
And it's crazy when you do job interviews, they're like, where do you see yourself in 5 and 10 years? And a lot of people will answer that, well, I see myself with this company, maybe 2 or 3 levels above and leading us into these next levels on the horizon of success. But can you really picture yourself that far?
No, I think it's important to think in the long term also. I think about having an 11-year-old, and that blows my mind.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to...
But it does help to keep that long-term thoughts around. I just personally, I'm big on the 3-year timeline. And I mean, when we first started, we were really focused on time freedom to spend time with our family for both of us. And it really has morphed over time into helping others achieve that because it has changed our life completely. Being able to take our son to the park on a random afternoon or spending time with other family, it's been really, really what we wanted out of life. And that wouldn't have been possible. So we want to help others achieve that, achieve their financial independence and live their dream life. And for me personally, one of my really big goals that I never really advocated for myself or really thought about because it seemed so impossible was I always wanted to live in a historic home. I just thought the charm and the uniqueness was something you can't get in a newer home.
Creaky floors.
Yes.
Saggy floors.
But I never thought it was possible because I wasn't going to be able to work on the house. And I didn't think financially it made the most sense. So that's just one of those dreams I tucked away and didn't think about.
Here we are today. We bought a historic home.
But we bought it in a unique way that made it financially prudent and an asset for us. Not in the Robert Kiyosaki terms of an asset yet, but
To give you an idea of what we did, we bought a house that was empty. It was gutted. There were no walls in the house other than the studs. There was no plumbing. There was no electrical. There were holes in the roof. The attic space had been burnt out, and it was uninhabitable. It needed a restoration.
half the windows were gone too.
Yes.
The old doors were covering the windows.
Mm-hmm. It was a unique way to get into a historic home.
So we were able to buy it and renovate it for about 2/3 of what it was actually worth.
But we didn't just outright have $60,000 in our pocket and go buy this house that we restored, did we?
No.
What did we do?
We took out a loan.
Right. So we used a FHA loan to purchase this house. Most banks don't allow you to just go buy an uninhabitable home. So there was this unique program that the FHA offers, which is the 203K, which allows you to buy the property and rehab it and then move into it. And then you're in an FHA loan program at that point. So if you don't know about FHA or 203K loans, just put that in your little toolbox and know that you can go renovate a house and move into it using that loan program.
Well, and our plan was to do this loan, live in it for a year, and then we were going to move on to another property. But we fell in love with where we're at, the neighbors, the home itself. So,
I think I like the environment of the house more than I like the house. I love our house, I do, but I think the neighbors and our walkable distance to our city that we live in and the community is what I love the best about it.
I love our house so much. We're actually in the beginning of developing new floor plans for a home we're going to build on some land. And we've copied the floor plan of our home as the foundation, the structure of how we're going to build our next home. So
we're going to essentially transplant this house and put it
We
on
are
10
not
acres.
moving this house.
I think it would fall apart.
So all of that to say, we had dreams that may or may not have been BHAGs, but just things that we wanted and didn't seem feasible. But we found a way through a lot of hard work and grit and education to make those happen.
Right.
And they never would have happened if we had never set them as dreams in the first place.
Just like going to the moon.
Right.
You're never going to get there if you don't plan to go. So how does someone create or develop or cast a big, hairy, audacious goal?
Yeah. I think when you're in the beginning stages, you don't want to focus on how you're going to accomplish it. You can get bogged down in the weeds and overwhelmed and stressed. And there's ways to break down the tasks to reach your goals, but that's not what we're talking about right here. We're just talking about what do you want and not how, just dream. What do you see your life looking like in any time frame? If 10 years is comfortable for you, then I think that's probably the optimal timeline. For me, that's not. So we usually think in 3-year stints, but you want to think as big as you possibly can.
Our whole life changed in 3 years. And that's proof in and of itself that a 3-year vision or a 3-year goal timeline is enough to make a huge change in your life.
For sure.
We both went from working full-time jobs to being full-time real estate investors and authors and podcasters.
And then parents.
And parents. Our whole lives didn't just turn around. It's like we started a new one.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. I think one good approach is to think about if you had unlimited money in your bank account and a blank calendar, what does your life look like?
Sitting behind the wheel of a dirt track car.
Oh, goodness.
The Lucas Oil Nationals at Eldora.
Sitting in a quiet room, reading a book, sipping on wine. We have very different goals.
And that's okay. That's all right. But we both have an idea of what is a really big goal of ours.
Well, and I think there's a level of what does your perfect day look like? When you wake up, what do you do? How do you spend your time? And just think about an ideal Tuesday, because it's not waking up from the weekend and you got Monday, or it's not Friday. What does an ideal Tuesday look like for you? And I think that will help you form what your ideal life will look like. And this will play into the vision. We'll talk about that more next week. But what is your ideal life, an ideal day? And then
I'll tell you, my ideal Tuesday always ends with tacos.
Oh, of course.
Because Taco Tuesday is a must.
Yes.
It's part of my diet.
It's a problem.
It's a great way to stay in shape.
Yes, something like that. You want to get very detailed as you're thinking about dreaming big in your BHAG. Don't just say, I want to travel more.
So you had just mentioned that you don't want to get into the details on how you get there.
Right.
Can you break down what you mean by get very detailed?
Yeah, so you don't want to get in the details of how to do it, but you want to be very specific about what you want. So don't say, I just want to travel more.
So you think instead of saying, I want to travel more, list out the places you want to travel to?
Yeah, and how long you're going to be there. And
what are you going to do while you're there?
Right. So for us, one big thing, we want to homeschool our kids. And part of that is giving more experiential learning, because we both feel like that's really how you learn and retain information. So I've always, right. So I've always said, we're not going to talk about the Grand Canyon or geographic changes of the world. We're going to go to the Grand Canyon and see the different layers of the rocks.
There's so much you can do there to teach a lesson on.
Right. Wildlife. I've sat through great ranger talks in the Grand Canyon.
Survival skills.
Yeah, we're not going Bear Grylls on this, but...
We could drop the kids off at the bottom of the canyon and then say, meet us at the top. You have 3 days before we send search and rescue.
Right. Here's your water. Here's your food.
No, they're going to have to make their own.
There's no water, so they'll
figure it out.
Just going to die.
No, they'll figure it out.
Oh, okay.
I've got faith in our kids.
Oh, more than you should.
I have faith in our one kid.
Right.
And future children, but...
Just think about if traveling is your goal in life. How do you want to travel? For us, RV is how we like to travel. It's just very family friendly and convenient. We like taking our dogs. But for you, it might be flying first class, or you might be okay flying coach, or you might want to fly on a private jet. I don't know. Think very specifically about what your dream life and dreaming big looks like for you.
Yeah.
I think you have a very clear idea of your race car and what it's going to look like. And
still haven't picked a number yet. That can come later.
That's hilarious. I'm sure that's going to hold you up.
It might. Yeah, getting into the details of not just, I want to have a farm.
What's on that farm?
Right. I want to have 13 chickens, 2 goats, a cow.
We're not getting a cow on our land. Sorry.
Be fun to have old bell cow out there.
Oh my gosh.
I like cows.
Yeah.
They go moo.
No matter what you're thinking about, if it's building your dream home, how big is it? What does it look like? And I think vision boards can be helpful in picking pictures and things to helping you be very clear on what you want. Yeah,
that's something I saw one of our friends do, TJ, who also has a podcast. He posted on his Facebook a couple weeks ago his vision board.
Yeah.
And it had a house, it had like this camper, it had this truck, and all of these little pictures on that vision board. And he was holding up his vision board, standing in front of his truck and his camper.
That's cool.
At this campsite. And, his post was all about, I wouldn't have got here if I hadn't have put it on this board.
Yeah.
And it was just very inspiring. So, TJ, if you're listening, you inspire me.
Yeah, let's share that link in the show notes so people can go check it out.
Absolutely. Well,
as you're thinking about your BHAG, there's a lot of areas you might want to consider keeping in mind as you're thinking through this. So for you, what are some areas you think are important for the BHAG?
I think you want to consider what was on your top 10 list to begin with. And I believe that most people on their top 10 list are going to have something to do with family and key relationships. So when having these big, hairy, audacious goals or just dreaming big, make sure that if it's on your top 10 list, like family and relationships, that you're very strategic about incorporating them into your vision and that goal of where you want to be.
Right.
So when you have that goal of travel, or you have that goal of owning a farm, that you're putting into those descriptions that I'm here with said person.
Right.
Or I am making sure that I'm keeping contact with said people.
Yeah.
So, or traveling with these people is a big thing for me.
Right.
We have really close friends that are not so close.
Right.
Some live in Utah, some live in Michigan, some in Colorado. And if we're not intentional about traveling with or to these people, it's likely those relationships wouldn't last.
Right.
So I think one big area to consider is making sure relationships and family are part of your goal strategizing.
Right. And it's developing a work schedule that fits that need. If you want to put in the hustle and acknowledge that some relationships are going to be not the forefront. I don't know the nice way to say it. It's for us, we sacrificed on our key relationships for a few years to reach our goals so that we have more time now. That's one strategy. Another strategy is more of a balanced approach, which is probably more sustainable. We sprinted and it's more of a marathon. We're adjusting to running at a marathon pace and not a sprint pace, which has been a struggle for us. But
well, yeah, Tiffany, you wrote a blog about or running a marathon at a sprint pace. And I think that blog really dives in deep a little bit more about managing your time in key relationships, possibly.
Yeah. So. And it's a tough balance, but being very intentional as you're developing your big dreams will help you get where you want to go. Also thinking about what kind of work you want to do. And that's one of my posts was about determining what work fuels you and what doesn't.
And maybe you're listening to this and you don't want to be a real estate investor. Maybe you don't want to be a landlord and you don't want to own rental properties, and that's okay. Our idea here on this show is unlocking your dream future.
Yeah.
Not through real estate investing precisely, but through any area that gets you to where you want to be.
Right.
So when she talks about what type of work do you do and what does your schedule look like, you can still be working in a corporate job or as a teacher or something like that, but just making sure that your huge, big, hairy goals are in line with what your daily work schedule looks like.
Yeah. And the other thought is, where do you live? Do you like where you're currently living? Do you want to try somewhere new? Move closer to family? Move away from family sometimes? What hobbies do you want to do? We've talked pretty extensively about travel. Are there any big purchases you want to make? Like our friend TJ with his truck and camper. For you, it's your race car. For me, it's a quiet sunroom. It's what will make you happy in your life. That's what you want to think about.
And maybe you don't know what's going to make you happy 10 years from now, but think about what you aspire to do. What makes you happy now?
Right.
And that might evolve. That might change, and that's okay. But do put something down to strive for.
Right. And I think folding in the top 10 list will help. The idea is that all of this builds on each other. So you start with your top 10 to get some clarity on what makes you happy. Then you start thinking about what do you really want out of life with dreaming big. And then we concrete that into a vision statement. And then we'll go from there into goal setting and creating really actionable daily tasks and habits to give you this big picture of your dream life and what makes you happy. So this is not goal setting. This is what's driving your goals. This is what is giving you that roadmap to create the vision statement, which is your roadmap for your goal setting. So the goals are really focused on the tactics of what you want to accomplish. We're big advocates of SMART goals. So they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So that's very tactical. This is more big picture, fuzzy, warm. What do you want out of life? And I think being intentional about this is going to help you achieve what you want. So many times we just get caught in the grind of life and kids and work, and we look up and years have passed. And we talked about this last week, the driving on autopilot on the way to work, and you look up and you didn't even realize, how the heck did I get here?
You don't want your life to be on autopilot.
Right. So spending the time dreaming big is really going to help you get what you want out of life.
It's going to create a sense of intention with your time and what you're doing.
Yeah. And I know for us, there were some months, probably even the first year and a half, that was absolutely brutal. Between working my job where I was not happy and I was soon pushed out of the position, and it was a borderline hostile work environment at times, and then getting off work, cooking dinner real quick, driving it 45 minutes to meet you to paint and do sheetrock mud, which we need to probably tear out that bathroom, but that's beside the point.
It works. It works.
To be fair, we've hired some contractors that have a similar work quality, so I'm not too upset.
Yeah.
But those days were so hard because we would work till 11 or 12.
I would sleep there.
Yeah, you did sleep there for a while. And then we'd go home, get up at 5:30 or 6, and then do it all over again.
Those were very long 18, 20-hour days.
Yeah.
That I felt like were necessary.
Right.
And a lot of people will tell you, don't ever get into your business like that. Cast your vision and then hire people.
Right.
You should never be the one doing the sweat. And it's a different mindset. It's a different strategy. And I'm sure there are different ways for different people, but we got to where we are today as fast as we did.
Right.
Because we sacrificed so much.
And we had the benefit of being in our mid-20s, no kids.
I was in my late 20s.
Okay. Either way, that's not how we would approach it now. We use the tools that were available to us to reach those goals.
That's right.
And I very distinctly remember making those stuffed peppers with the quinoa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that one stands out. And I remember getting high on paint because the room wasn't ventilated.
Mm-hmm.
We had some good times, but dang if it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
And we talk about it today as the house is on Cooley Road, and we talk about the Cooley Road days.
Yeah.
And how we were just grinding and pushing. And the only reason I think we continued after that first house was because we had such a big why and a big dream.
Absolutely. Being stuck in the attic because you can't get out quick enough because it's so hot and you're nearing on the edge of passing out, so you just put your feet through the sheetrock in the ceiling and go down.
And there was a giant
that you
snake
don't
skin.
die.
I can't get over that snake skin that was in there. You should include the picture in the show notes or post it on social.
Oh boy. Yeah. If I still have it, I'll put it in the show notes.
Ugh.
It was a very small attic space. And listen, I was a high school band director, not an electrician, not a plumber, not a carpenter. And here I was in the attic on a 100-degree day in the middle, by myself in the middle of a Georgia summer. And I learned a valuable lesson that day.
Yeah. And learn this lesson. Do not repeat what he did. We are not endorsing stupid work.
That's right. Like you said, all of that crazy, hard, difficult things that we went through, if we were to have just stopped right there, we would not be where we are today. We would not have made that worthwhile.
Right.
That sacrifice, that 6-month-long sacrifice we made would give us cash flow. It would give us some money, but it wouldn't have been an effective snowball if we just stopped.
Right.
And the reason we didn't stop was because we had even bigger goals to achieve.
Right.
We didn't just want one rental property. We wanted more cash flow by getting more rental properties.
Right.
And why did we want that cash flow? So that we could afford the time freedom away from our jobs so that we could achieve the things that we wanted to do, like our travel and our house and the time and financial freedom. It all kind of just walks its way backwards to how it starts. It starts with these big goals.
Right. When we first set out, we were, I think, on a 5 or 6 year target to reach our goal. Things shifted every 6 months, it felt like.
Yeah.
And we found a strategy that really worked for us. And we'll do a deep dive on kind of our portfolio and how we got where we are. But we accomplished our goal in such a shorter time frame. And you can achieve so much more than you really think you can when you have very clearly defined vision for where you want to be.
You are so right. You are so much more capable of achieving the things than you really give yourself credit for.
Right.
I remember when I was 19 years old and I enlisted in the Army, and I was a high school band nerd. I was playing tuba, and here I was joining the Army. And I remember being day one of basic training, and they shaved your head. They take your regular glasses. They give you the basic training glasses. And I remember just being in the bathroom that day, looking in the mirror and thinking to myself, what have you gotten yourself into? There's no way you're going to make it. This is not you. But I had a goal that I wanted to be in the military for various reasons. To serve my country, A. B, to have some income while in college. And C, to have that college paid for. And those were really big goals that I had. But the biggest and most important goal is that I needed to prove it to myself that I was capable, that I could do it. And it was a really rigorous and difficult process through basic training. but I didn't allow myself to fail. I had the goal of success and the goal of seeing myself as a soldier that I made it through. So I never thought that I could run 2 miles in 14 minutes, but I had never thought, can you run 2 miles in 14 minutes? I'd never had that goal for myself that I could do it. So I say all of that to say, and re-attest to what Tiffany said, you are far more capable than what you give yourself credit for.
Yeah. If you don't have the dreams, you'll never achieve them.
Yeah.
Because if you're not working towards it, there's no way.
I'm sure when Elon Musk told his team, we're going to create a fully electric car that is comparable to a Lamborghini in speed and affordable.
But it also has to fit, 5 people? Because he had 3 kids?
And it also has to fit 5 people, a mom and dad and 3 kids. And I'm sure when he told his team this, they're like, no one has ever done this.
Right.
There's no way this is going to happen. And here we are in the Tesla days now.
Right.
Where owning a Tesla is a niche thing.
Right.
And it is.
But it's obtainable. It's not something
obtainable.
that, it's not a Lamborghini that they're still expensive.
It's just Elon Musk created this culture and this really awesome thing by just having an idea.
Right. So what ideas do you have that you haven't really tended to, that you deep down want out of life, but you haven't really thought through?
Yeah, what do you see other people have and you say to yourself, well, that must be nice? Instead of saying that must be nice, say, how am I going to do that for myself?
Right. Yeah.
Because they did it for themselves somehow.
Right.
Whether they worked for it themselves or got it handed to them, it doesn't matter. They have it. You don't. Let that encourage you. Let that motivate you. Maybe you don't have access to unlimited wealth and you can't just go get what you want.
Right.
You're going to have to figure it out. That's what we did.
Yeah.
We had to figure it out.
Yeah. I think chasing your dreams is the most important thing you can do in life, because it allows you to be happy and to be present and show up for the people that matter the most. And it allows you to create a legacy for the people that you're going to leave behind one day.
It allows you to be intentional.
Yeah.
It allows you to make sure that you're living your life on purpose.
Right.
And not by accident.
Right. And we wanted to create this on purpose investor brand because we want people to be intentional with their life and how they're investing and spending their time. And if you're not happy with where things are for you right now, we want to help you find that clarity and vision to reach your goals and your big dreams.
And if Eric Vogel can do it, even if it meant that Tiffany drug him the whole way, you could do it too.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty stubborn and I am pretty lazy at times. And if I can do it, you can too.
Yeah. So
honestly.
I am here to drag you through to help you reach these goals also.
It's not as bad on the other side. It is worth it. I promise.
Yes. Thank you all for hanging out with us and listening to us talk about dreaming big. How can you make the time you spent with us worthwhile? Is it thinking about your life and developing your BHAG? Should you revise your goals for the year to make them bigger, or something else? Don't let the time you just invested go to waste. You only get one life, so live it purposefully. That's all we have for you today. See you next time.
Are you ready to discover and build your dream life? Then it's time to become a Pathfinder. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get tips and tricks to help you find your path and get the latest from our blog. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review on your favorite podcast app. If you're enjoying this show, share it with friends, family, and fellow investors. See you next time at the On Purpose Investor Podcast.